Hello, everyone, and welcome to part two of my ultimate draft guide for the 2026 MLB Draft. Today, we're going to be covering pick 11 through 20 Nationals, Angels, Cardinals, Marlins, Diamondbacks, Rangers, Astros, Reds, Guardians, and Red Sox. Um, yesterday's video covered the first 10 draftees: White Sox, Rays, Twins, Giants, Pirates, Royals, Orioles, Athletics, Braves, and Rockies. Looking at some of the picks that I like from those drafts, a couple of picks that I don't like as much. Today we're going to be drilling into the Nationals to start. So without further ado, let's get going here. So Nationals, I thought had a pretty interesting draft. I think they did a pretty good job of mixing college with high school. Two high school guys in particular, Luke Williams, Cooper Harris, sort of the twin billing here. One I gave an A, one I gave a B. If you can see on the scale here, color coded. I really like the draft for the Nationals a lot. Of course, it's a new front office this year, but when you look at a guy like Luke Williams and you look at a guy like Cooper Harris, these are sort of the foundational pieces for the new front office, right? You look at these two guys, one a middle infielder hitter, one a pitcher. These are sort of the proof concepts of their developmental ability, right? A lot of these college guys, especially fourth years, it's sort of, cakes baked in the mold. Especially a guy like Chris Hakopian from Texas A&M. 60 hit, 50 power, 45 field. Probably gonna end up being an okay second baseman, but what this guy can do is absolutely rake. One of my favorite picks, actually, of day one. 10th in the group project rating, 14th according to MLB Pipeline. One of the things that I really like about him a lot is, the accolades that he's had. And at the end of the day, what you're looking at here is an MLB probable. He's going to hit for some power. He's going to hit enough to be a quality everyday hitter. Whether he can find a home in the field is another question. Obviously, you're not moving him anywhere other than DH second base. That's probably going to be limiting his upside a little bit there. But middle of the first round here, I think you're just looking for quality big league contributors, which I think Chris Hakopian can easily be. Looking at some of his Texas A&M stats, of course, a transfer over from Maryland, where he is from, in Gaithersburg there. 319, 1141, more walks and strikeouts, solid OPS there. This is in the SEC, first year SEC for Texas A&M. He's always had more walks and strikeouts. Obviously, 2025 being the biggest outlier here, over a 500 OBP. Big fan of this pick. Obviously, because I graded it an A there at the top of the Nationals draft there. But next guy I wanted to talk about is, I alluded to them earlier, high school guys, Luke Williams. He's not someone that, it's hard to project high school guys. You look at MLB, they have him at 90, he was taken at 78. And he was someone who was graded at 70 for the group project. So obviously it seems like a lot of guys have different viewpoints of him. 70 run in high school, that's probably going to be trending downwards at some point, but probably not anytime soon. Third round pick, not too shabby there. Great bat speed. There's some raw power there. Again, this is, like I said earlier, this is sort of a proof concept of the developmental ability of the new Nationals front office. They've coached so much out of guys like Curtis Mead and Luis Garcia Jr., and guys like that. Obviously, it's time to prove that you can do it with someone at a high school here, 18-year-old, committed to Vanderbilt. If nothing else, I think that speaks highly of his abilities. He is ranked as the number 35 high schooler in the nation, according to Perfect Game. Huge physical tools, good runner, great arm, can be elite in either shortstop or center field, and an outstanding junior nationals for Team USA. Um, all these are pretty good remarks here, and I personally think that, these grades probably from MLB Pipeline are a little low here based on everything that I've read about him, but the 70 run, 60 arm probably bumped the field up a little bit. That's going to be a guy who's going to have some loud tools. Whether he can hit enough to make it to the big leagues remains to be seen, but I like the pick for some tools here, especially going under slot, presumably with Copian, and perhaps a little bit under slot too with Chase Brunson here. So take a swing. I graded this guy as an A. I just like the upside. I like the thought process here. So Cooper Harris, the pitcher out of high school here, I gave him a B, but I will say this for an 18-year-old, 6'3", 205, probably could grow a little bit more, committed to Texas. That's a great sign there. The thing that I am liking of Cooper Harris, if I can just do this really quick, 87th on the group project, 76th on the MLB Pipeline. Either way, good value at 106 there for the Nationals. Not massive in terms of size, but as you can see, very well-rounded, very polished tools. Which 55 control as a high schooler, that's something I always love to see, especially with a 55 graded fastball and 55 slider. So has at least two pitches that you could loosely grade as plus. If you want to pull up Perfect Game here, he is 68th ranked. Oh, that's a young photo they used of him there, but 68th ranked high schooler. Athletic build, low effort delivery, up to 95 at the Perfect Game National, 3,000 RPM slider. I love all these things. Nationals definitely need some pitching prospects. He's probably going to be a little bit of a slow burner. As you can see in the back part of the draft, you have 3 college pitchers taken in the 6th, 7th, and 8th. Good fan of this guy. Seems like has a solid floor despite being a high schooler. I did want to talk about one of these, these college pitchers that's more for slot value than anything else in my mind. Gage Peterson is a little bit upside. The guy that I really want to talk about here, though, Daniel Cuvée. Love this pick. Love this pick in the 5th round. He's someone that I've recognized in a few iterations of drafts before. He was previously selected in the 17th round by the Pirates. I knew of him mostly through his time at Miami, as someone who has high power upside. You can see here 60 grade power, 60 grade arm. The only issue really being is he going to make enough contact, and where is his future home on the field, right? So he's not going to run for much. Listed as a third baseman. He's got the arm for it, sure, but the fielding is maybe a little bit of a question mark. But 106 in the group project, 120 in the MLB Pipeline. Either way, 138. That's great value for Cuvée, a guy who hit 12 home runs last year for Miami in the ACC, over 1,000 OPS in all 3 years of college. And we're looking at a guy who had 84 RBIs last year. And, each year walk totals going up, each year strikeout totals going down. Obviously culminating in only 41 games, so a little bit of shortened season here, but culminating in more walks than strikeouts. Certainly a very encouraging sign. Didn't quite get to as much power as he probably could have, but, I'm banking on the skills being there in terms of his pitch selectability, which will raise his floor pretty significantly. And, it's raw power, but I think he's got enough skills. And, this sentence right here just got my mouth watering. If he can cut down on the chase, he has the approach to be an average hitter, which means he might get to 70 in-game power. A guy like that floated down to the 5th round, 4th-year junior, probably taking a round slot, maybe a tiny bit more, but that's pretty negligible. That's my favorite pick for the Nationals. Might be my favorite pick of this segment of teams for part 2. But yeah, I like the Nationals draft a lot. Gave it an A- overall. So next up is the Angels. So Angels, this is obviously a team that has been known for a while now as being a team that likes to rush guys. Right. This is a team that likes to draft, MLB ready guys, Zach Neto, Christian Moore, Nolan Shanuel, guys like that, right? And, of course, people love to talk about the all-pitcher draft of which only 2 have made it to the big leagues. Sam Bachman, really the only one that's played of any note there. But, this draft is definitely a departure. Would I say that it's a departure in a good way? I would say probably, yeah. Of course, they have their new front office in there. John Mozeliak is I guess he's listed as temporary head of baseball operations, but he's got some experience. He might end up being the long-term guy there, but took Jared Grinlinger in the first pick, number 5 high schooler overall. I believe he is the 3rd high schooler off the list here. It's a pick that I like. He gets a B from me. The only thing is, if I'm really thinking about him as a two-way player, I'm not so sure that's where he's going to stick. I mean, I know the Angels developed Ohtani and all that kind of stuff. In my mind, though, he's probably going to end up being one of the 2, probably going to end up being a pitcher. But I know that Baseball America has said that he might end up being a hitter long-term. And in my mind, he's a talented player in both. But if he only ends up being one or the other, I don't necessarily like the value for this pick. But again, that's sort of putting the cart before the horse. We haven't really seen him on either end, and in the pros, reclassified senior, by the way, 17 years old, barely 17. So there's a lot of growth left here for this guy. Probably 6'3", 190, committed to Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee is not a program for scrubs by any stretch. Now, there are some tools that I find interesting here. 60 grade fastball, 60 grade changeup, 55 control as a pitcher. Really good stuff, especially for a guy as young as he is. The bat remains a little bit more of a question mark. I think he probably ends up as a pitcher, and he might have some Michael Lorenzen appeal briefly, might take some at bats here and there, but he gets a B for me. Like, I know he's sort of like one of the more talked about players, but like I think the floor there is probably like a competent mid rotation or like mid relief cut type of guy. But I hope he develops into a 2A superstar. I really do. I want the best for the Angels, and I would love to see that as a baseball fan. But the next 2 picks are 2 guys that I like a lot more. Jared Advincula and Gavin Grahovic. And let's talk about Advincula first. Again, one of these guys who's more of a hit, speed, decent field, rather than like big pop. It's more so like This is a guy who's going to hit a lot, right? 30 walks to 16 strikeouts, 10 home runs, 66 RBI, 16 stolen bases. Second season in a row in the ACC where he had double-digit steals. 434 for Georgia Tech this year, over a 500 OBP, 1100 OPS. Great value here for Ed Vincula. He's a guy that I think is maybe a little bit more of a guy that they should have been targeting before rather than like a Zach Neto type. This is a guy who's got a high floor. He probably will move quickly just based on his bat, but he's got tools, right? And it's not just because he's in close proximity to the big leagues, but because he looks pretty polished, right? 49th rated in the group project, 48th rated in the rankings, 45th pick, basically chalk. 6'2", 195, probably add some power there. I think 35 is maybe a little low, but the hit and the run in the field are all very solid. Probably ends up at a second baseman like he's listed. But, ranked first in Division I at Georgia Tech in hits, second in batting average. That's some tough competition in the ACSC as well. And I like this pick a lot. Second round pick, I think that's good value. I really do. Next guy, Gavin Grahovic, 60 power. That's the selling point, right? 50 run is not terrible. 55 arm is fine, but low hit, low field. This is a guy who had a little bit more of a ceiling in the draft coming into this year than he does now. I'm someone who's a big fan of look, this is a guy that maybe didn't end up where he thought he would, but 59th ranked in the group project, 38th ranked pipeline, taking an 81 pick, is great value no matter how you're slicing it, probably ending up at first base. 60 grade power, you always take that chance. He's had over 20 home runs twice in his career in his 2 full healthy seasons in the SEC. 95 strikeouts, 36 walks in his first year in college is not great, but cut that in more than in half by the time he graduated into the draft here. Fewer walks, but, higher batting average. Looks like he maybe flattened out his swing a tad. Wasn't too impatient, it looks like. And 1100 OPS in the SEC. You take that all day. Again, some questions with the hit tool, but 60 grade power, you take that all day, especially for the value that you're getting in that pick. So I like that pick a lot for the Angels. I think there's a lot to like about these two in completely different ways, but will probably be part of the Angels in some capacity in the next few years. Last guy I want to talk about here with the Angels is Jackson Willits. Again, a departure from what they're typically looking at. Younger brother of the first overall pick last year, of course. Actually, my apologies. He is a college player. I don't know where my head's at. But yeah, he is 21 years old, so actually I think he's the older brother of first overall pick from last year, but they are related either way. Someone who's got a little bit upside here, right? 50 hit, 50 run, 50 arm, 50 field, very well rounded. MLB Pipeline has him at 117. Group Project has him at 122. Good value, taken at 141. A lot of these picks, I think, are just really good value. And, this is a guy that I think if you can take a future big leaguer in the 5th round, you absolutely do. And I think that's probably what he's going to end up being, right? 313 average in the SEC for Oklahoma. Not a whole lot of loud tools here. 54 strikeouts is a little mystifying, but he does have back-to-back 300 batting average years, back-to-back over 900 OPS years in the SEC, 14 stolen bases in his second year at Oklahoma, national champion Oklahoma. More RBIs this year, but more strikeouts, same number of walks. I like some things about this profile, but could just end up being sort of a utility guy in that role. I would not say no to that in the 5th round by any stretch. So, solid pick there. Obviously, my favorite pick here, though, Jackson Willits. I just think that he offers the best balance of tools, and there's just not a low floor like there is like Grahovic if he doesn't hit, or Advincula if he just doesn't get to any power whatsoever. So, I think that's a solid pick there. Moving on, B+ is what I graded the Angels overall. Moving on, Cardinals. Cardinals have an interesting draft. I sort of like their picks a decent amount, except for Owen Henney and Derek Schaefer, and I can get into a little bit why that is. When I look at those two picks, I say to myself, these are cost-saving picks. And they're cost-saving picks because they took Trevor Condon in the first round, going to be expensive high schooler, and they took Rocco Maniscalco in the second round out of high school as well. Probably both going to be expensive. I wouldn't have thought they would take up their whole budget, and a lot of picks here. I assume they want to sign them all. So, there's some cost-cutting measures here, but what I would say about Owen Henney and Derek Schaefer is there's sort of standard below slot type guys, which are fine, but I'm not seeing super inspiring stuff there, especially when there's better value, I think, on this end of the draft than maybe they thought they were getting in those picks. But we won't talk about those guys. We're going to talk about the guys that I like. Specifically, Tegan Kuntz, D. Kennedy, and Cal Randall. We'll start with Tegan Kuntz here. He is someone that I think is excellent value here for the Cardinals. 27th in the group project, 25th on Pipeline. Look, there's guys that I like, and there's guys like this guy who I think, coming from the SEC, he's someone who had a little bit of late helium. I saw his name being talked about in the first round several times here. Get him at 32nd in the first round is certainly a great little pickup there. He's had success with the swing and miss this year. 11.8 strikeouts per 9 in the SEC with a 1.185 whip. 1.8 walks per 9. The hits are a little high. That's to be expected in the SEC, but everything around that is phenomenal. Cardinals are probably going to want to look to add a third offering to his fastball curveball there. Probably going to be in the way of a changeup, I would think. But he does have 4 pitches, and he has good control. So, it's one of those profiles where I think he'll end up being in the rotation, in the big leagues. I think he's someone that is a gamer at the SEC with Tennessee. I think he is someone that, if you look at, he spins the ball well. Again, good carry, up to 98 on the fastball. Plus offerings on 2 of his pitches. I know he's coming out of college here, but I trust the Cardinals to build a better repertoire for him if he can maintain that control, maintain that good feel for fastball spin. I think this guy could be an effective starter when he gets to the big leagues. And again, 27, 25, however you rank him, getting him at pick 32, I think is good value here. Especially if you sign him for slot as well. So I like that pick a lot. He gets an A. D. Kennedy is the other guy that I wanted to talk about. Ranked 79 according to Pipeline, and according to the group project, ranked 90. Both good value picks at 144. So another college guy here. He is someone that I just think is, again, a ball player, right? Someone that, Big 12, not the biggest of conferences, 2 years at Kansas State after being at Texas as a freshman. Really took a big step forward here in terms of power, going from 11 home runs to 20, in terms of RBIs, 43 to 69, stolen bases, 12 to 22. 50 strikeouts is maybe a tad high, but he's shaving off 29 from previous year while raising his walk percentage. 357, 461, 1194 OPS. Just an all-around great improvement to see from his age 20 to 21 at Kansas State. And I think that, it's one of those things that to be even in the conversation for a Golden Spikes award, is something that you have to really look at and say, this is a guy, take it in the fourth round. I think this is excellent value. 55 hit, 50 power, 55 run, 55 arm, 50 field, all around great, well-balanced ball player. Beautiful. It's interesting here. They mentioned LASIK surgery here. Better vision. He's taken a massive step forward. It's tough to say whether he'll stick at shortstop, and I think he could be a really good third or second baseman here. And there's just so much about this guy and his step forward. He's got up arrows next to his name. Fourth round is excellent value. Not only in the fourth round, but their 7th draft selection of the draft. I think that gets an A all day. I like it a lot. I really do. And Cal Randall is actually one of the pitchers that I am most interested by. Maybe not necessarily from a point of view of outcomes, but 161 ranked on the group project, 218 on MLB Pipeline, so a lot of discrepancy there, but taken at 146, right? A little high according to both resources, but certainly more so for MLB Pipeline. But take a look at that 70 grade fastball, right? 70 grade fastball is what you want to see, right? Now, let's be clear. 40 grade control is not what you want to see, certainly. 5.5 walks per 9 for UCLA in the Big Ten. However, he pitched all 3 seasons at UCLA. That is no mean feat. Number 1 overall pick coming out of UCLA. Let's just say, let's call a spade here. This guy has been an ace reliever for the Bears for a couple of years here. 31 innings pitched, 57 strikeouts here, 16.5 strikeouts per 9. Strikeout stuff has always been above 10 here, but the back-to-back good ERA years despite the control problems. Clearly has knockout stuff. Really only throwing 2 pitches, but 2 good pitches here. 70 grade fastball, 55 slider. Work on the control. That's what it is, right? 1.42 opponent batting average. That'll play, right? That'll play. 6'4". It's up to 97, touching triple digits. And he threw it a ton. Let's be clear. He threw that fastball a ton. And this is a guy that you want to branch off from that. I think that in round 5, you're not going to get a perfect player, but to get a 70 grade pitch here in the 5th round is great value. And I trust the Cardinals to find something in there, teach them a little bit of control. They've been dealing with a lot of control pitchers for a while now. Andre Pallon and Michael McGreevy and all those guys. So It's about time that they use some of the stuff that they learned from them. Could end up being a top tier relief pitcher in the next level, especially if you can get that fastball play in. So, overall, I think it's a B. Not a ton of upside. I will say Tegan Kun's probably going to end up being in a big league rotation. DK will probably end up being bottom part of an MLB lineup, and Cal Randall will probably end up being a quality setup man. And the rest of them is a bit of a question mark. Trevor Condon is sort of chalk value at 13 there, but overall, not bad at all. Marlins. Now, the Marlins here, there's a few things I could say about their overall draft. And it's sort of marked by two guys that I think have split opinion a lot, but they have some name value right here. So, first guy I want to talk about is their first overall pick. I've seen Jacob Lombard mocked as high as 4. So, for them to get him at 14, I think is incredibly great value. He was at 6 in the group project, and according to MLB Pipeline, he was at 5. 14, great value. I know there's some swing and miss concerns, but you get him at underslot at $5 million at 14. I think you look at the guy who has the tools, right? You look at the guy who has, he had a bad showcase. So what? He's been talked about in the top 5 so many times. The second best high schooler taken here. Elite defense, and he's got power. I take that player any time of the day, right? The hit tool might be a question mark. It might be, right? And there's some worries there, sure. Why not? But 60 power mocked, 6'3", 195 at 18 years old. Big guy. Good fielding. According to Perfect Game, he has elite defensive actions. And, he's playing at shortstop as well. He's got a good chance to stick there. I think the Marlins can really find a lot of value here. Premium stuff like premium athlete, juice in the bat. He has the ability to be a plus hitter, although there's some swing and miss with fastballs up in the zone. But these are some tweaks that MLB organizations are not without knowledge of, right? And there's so many other things to like about him. 55 field, 65 run. If he's hitting around 250, 240, but he's putting 25 home runs up on the board and playing elite defense, who wouldn't love that? Who wouldn't love that as part of their organization, right? And I think teams were maybe scared away a little bit because of the showcase performances there. I think that's a bit silly. I think you can't just go off of one little showcase to negate how everybody sees him and how everybody views him as a long-term target here. So, look, I think this is one of the best picks of the draft, if I'm honest. Like, maybe there's some bust potential here, but there's also such premium upside. And with how sort of, I won't say mediocre the middle of the pack is, but there's just a lot of, like, cromulent big leaguers in there. And a lot of teams took the safer route, which is fair. That's a fine enough investment with your first round pick. I want my first overall pick to be a big swing on some big tools, some massive upside, and I'll figure out the rest as I go along. And I think the Marlins probably were over the moon when they had Jacob Lombard land in their lap at pick 14. So that's an easy A. Also my favorite pick there. Second guy that I want to talk about here, probably a guy that a lot of people want me to talk about if they're listening, Rintaro Sasaki. So, obviously, if you know, you know, but if you don't, let me just give you a brief background here. This is a guy who had a very winding road comparatively to the big leagues. So, taken in the 8th round by the Marlins. Born in Japan, was a top high school prospect in Japan, was taken in the 1st round in the MLB Draft. He declared for college instead. He attended Stanford. Not unheard of here, if you get Rikyu Nishida, who plays for the White Sox. He was coming out of Oregon. Not the first time. Probably the first time, though, that someone with this high stock in Japan came over before making his professional debut there. So he took a swing here. 235, not ranked by MLB Pipeline in the top 250, ranked 440 in the group project. But I would say he has faced better competition from a younger age than just about anybody in this draft. Japanese high school baseball is a incredibly meticulous, grueling, tough, atmosphere. I think he's probably getting a better baseball education, if you want to call it that, in high school than a lot of these guys. Now, 2 years at Stanford here, so that's something to consider here. First year, not great. 7 home runs, 41 RBIs, only 269 with a 790 OPS. Not great. But this year, age 21, takes a bigger step forward. 16 home runs, 47 RBI. A lot of walks, 45. A lot of strikeouts, 50. 403 OBP is not bad. A 952 OPS. Now, the ACC at Stanford, no joke. This is clearly a guy who has a good idea of the strike zone and will hit for some power. Whether that's going to be enough to get him through the ranks, that remains to be seen. We'll see. We'll see. But I like the pick. I think it's good value. I think he's more polished than just about any of these guys in terms of a quality of opponent on average throughout his seminal baseball years. One guy I want to quickly talk about, the first F off the board here, Nick Tolbert. Nick Tolbert, a high schooler taken in the 9th round. In and of itself, not something to really write home about. It's a useful strategy. But when you're paying so much money to Lombard, $5 million, slightly under slot, but then you have Wesley Roberson out of high school there. You're taking a third guy out of high school. And there's probably going to be an over slot pay here, as typically high schoolers are. In the 9th round, I don't really see the value with going for a high schooler that's basically off the board entirely. Ranked the 500th high schooler on Perfect Game, not even ranked in the top 500 in the group project, and not ranked on MLB Pipeline. I don't see what the upside play is here, if I'm honest. I don't really see what, you're probably not spending a ton to buy him out of a commitment to Wichita State, but still, this strikes me as someone you could have taken in the 15th, 16th, 17th, etc. round and been fine. I don't think this guy was really on anybody's radar. So I just don't understand using a top 10 pick on a guy like him. 6'6", 213, he's a big guy, and there's probably some projectability there, but if that's what you're hanging your hat on and you're spending over slot on a high schooler that probably wasn't on anybody's radar, I don't get it. I don't get it. Especially when you're taking this many unranked players overall. That definitely drags down their grade. F is, I think, a fair enough grade. But that's sort of why there's a C+ there. But I love the Jacob Lombard pick. So all is not lost for the Marlins. And at the end of the day, if you're going to take an F, you might as well do it in the 9th round rather than the 1st or 2nd round. So anyway, Diamondbacks, they're one of the lowest grades that I have. I won't beat around the bush here. I won't bury the lead. I only have one A from their picks here. Mika Worthy. Might as well talk about him first and talk about my thoughts on the draft overall. Now, the Diamondbacks, I think, are not a team that I would necessarily call an amazing talent developer overall. They have some success stories like Corbin Carroll, sure. But then you have as many Brandon Pfaadt And, who else do you want to talk to? I mean, Jordan Lawler, but that's mostly because of injuries. But, like, Alec Thomas is another guy. Like, guys that look promising in a lot of their stops in the minor leagues. And simply just were not able to convert that to big league output. So when I see them take a guy like Ryder Helfrich here, talented guy, ranked 11th by Pipeline and ranked 9th by the Group Project. Sure, that sounds good to me. 45 hit, 40 run. Great arm, great field, 65 arm, 60 field. He's going to stick at catcher, which is great. I just don't trust the Diamondbacks to do great with a guy with a 45 hit tool. That's really where my concern comes from. And at 6'1", he had a nice season last year. 15 home runs, 38 RBI. 305, but strike out 53 times. Strike out 55 times to 55 walks. Dead even, 417 OBP. 18 home runs, 53 RBIs. This is all from this year. There's some balance there. And, this guy will probably be a starting catcher, but I don't really see him as much more than that. He'll probably provide you with some pop. Probably won't hit for much average. I'm looking at like a 230, maybe like 20 to 25 home runs at his peak, but that's fine. That's a serviceable big league catcher. I personally want more out of that pick. Like I rate it as a C. I think it's perfectly fine. You take someone who's a big leaguer, but I don't think he's a plus big leaguer. Like some of the surer bets, like Tyler Bell, AJ Gracia, Derek Curiel. I don't think he's a plus regular like those guys are. I just think he's a solid regular. Might make like an all-star team in his career or something like that. But there's a lot that I think you could have done here that I would have liked more, especially when you have a guy like Gabriel Moreno. I know you can't really draft based on what you have in the big leagues, but 26-year-old Gabriel Moreno, I feel like my catcher of the future is all set. Like, I don't need to be looking at a catcher in this position. I don't think he's like enough of a value proposition to want to take him off the board. Not when Gio Rojas is still there, Not when Cameron Flukie is still there or Ace Reese. Like, if you wanted to just chase power, go with Ace Reese there. But I guess they wanted someone closer to the big leagues. So, I mean, I'm fine with it, but it's just not my cup of tea. But Mika Worthy. So this is someone that I have had a few different thoughts about here. I've re-ranked him a couple of times. And I don't know if it's because I just felt like they needed to have, Diamondbacks that is, they needed to have an A on the board. Because I think before I re-ranked him, they were going to have no A's, which is certainly not what you want to see. Went to Stony Brook, SUNY Stony Brook, small school, for sure. 248 on the Group Project, 230 on MLB Pipeline, taken at 177. So, a bit of a reach, but, and this is a big but, 60 fastball, 55 slider, 40 control. So those are the three big things. But he has 4 pitches, right? Older side of 22. Probably going to be 23 pretty soon. 3.12 ERA for Stony Brook here at age 22. 69 and a third. But what you're really looking at is the 93 strikeouts. 12.1 strikeouts per 9. 4 walks per 9. Even 0.6 home runs per 9. Look, he's an older guy, but 6'5", 220, I like the projectability. 60 fastball, 55 slider. That gives him a good base, right? Control could be better. And this is a guy that has some things working against him here, but taking him in the 6th round, it's absolutely going to save you some money so you can sign the rest of your draft picks. I think it's a good amount of upside for an underslot, small school 6th-round pick. And, one thing that I have that I marked when I was reading a little write-up here from MLB Pipeline here, he's got up to 99 on the fastball with good shapes, plus heater with 20 inches of vertical break. Like, that's an elite fastball. 98 miles per hour with 20 vert. That's up there with some of the best. And, like, you got to work on the control. You got to work on the off speed, right? But a good slider could be an elite fastball in the 6th round, small school, big underslot at 6'5", 220. I take that any day of the week. That's why I give it an A. So, it's sort of a mediocre draft overall, but I think that guy could be a big leaguer one day, and I think that the Diamondbacks will love to see that. One guy I wanted to point out, 9th rounder, Chris Katz, unranked in both lists here, but I wanted to point out this guy's college stats. If you're going to take him in a 9th rounder, you want a college performer. Mercer, small school, but he was at Wake Forest before, and he didn't really get much of a chance there. But he performed really well as a freshman. 30 games, 349, 906 OPS. But we're talking about Mercer here, where he had over a 1,300 OPS. I'm talking about 23 homers, 74 RBIs, 51 walks to 26 strikeouts, a 510 OBP. I mean, I'm talking about numbers popping off the page. Now, 23-year-old, old for the level. Don't get me wrong. This is why he's a 9th rounder, because he's not a 21-year-old putting up these stats. But you take a swing at a 9th rounder here, and you have those kind of numbers. I like that pick. I give him a B just because, like, 23 years old at a smaller school, putting up those numbers, it's like a 24-year-old putting up those numbers against high A. But it could be an indicator of something. I like the flyer. I'm not going to knock that by any stretch. So, yeah. Not a fan of the draft, but there's some upside there. So, speaking of drafts that I like, though, the Rangers. So the Rangers had a really great draft. Now, I won't bury the lead here. Top 3 picks are the guys I'll focus on here, but Gio Rojas, the number 1 rated high school pitcher in this here draft. Number 3 overall high schooler according to Perfect Game, rated as the 15th ranked overall player in the group project, and he is 8 according to MLB Pipeline. Getting him here at pick 16 is great value in my opinion. Now, Stoneman Douglas is one of those powerhouse schools, right? A lot of MLB players have come through there. 96 on the mound, great numbers in Perfect Game play, and there's something to be said about a guy like Gio Rojas. Not a super talented year for high school pitchers or pitchers in general, but as a high schooler, he is the second pitcher off the board. And it's sort of in a similar vein to Jacob Lombard. I think some people kind of overthought it maybe a little bit. But at 6'4", 190, probably a little bit of room to grow there. But he is definitely someone that I'm keeping an eye on. Probably could be a good pitcher down the line. I don't know about great, but good certainly. And, if he's going to fall onto your lap, I think if you're the Rangers, you're over the moon here. Connor Como, another high schooler here. He's someone that I'm very intrigued by, and I've heard a lot of people at Perfect Game in particular talk about this guy, and they're very pleased with what they see. 51 overall in the group project, 55 according to Pipeline, taken at 54. Shock value, 55 hit, 50 power, 55 arm, 45 field. So the fielding needs some work, but he's committed to Texas A&M, 6'4", 180, at 17 years old. Room to grow there. Second in the Home Run Derby at Rogers Center for Canadian high schoolers, Future Games Showcase. And, he's performed extremely well on the showcase circuit. And, advanced for his age. And his power potential could be up to 2025, they say. I think it probably could be more, honestly. So advanced feel with the bat. Showing up great on the showcase circuit. Undersized. Room to grow at 6'4", 180. Strong ACC commitment here. And 20th high schooler overall. But projectable, just great power, bat speed. Awesome for how young he is, right? 17 years old. And I think if the Rangers play their cards right, probably end up being more of a first base type in the long run. But if he just keeps hitting, it won't be a problem. Sweet left-handed swing at that value at 55 in the second round. I take that all day long. And especially because he's done it with the wood bats as well. And I think this is great to get out ahead. But the creme de la creme, what I think might be my personal favorite pick in the draft. Third round, Brody Bamilla. This is a guy that was talked about a lot being a first round pick. And this guy, 37th ranked in the group project, 23rd ranked on Pipeline, taken at 89. Insane value. Now, apparently he's going to sign and undergo Tommy John surgery in his first year. So we're probably not going to see him until 2028. So bear that in mind. But this guy's a young high schooler, 18 years old, out of Massachusetts, committed to Texas, strong SEC. I mean, listen, this is a guy. He is massive. 6'9", 255 with a 70 grade fastball. 50 slider, 50 changeup, 50 control. Injuries are really the only thing that are preventing this guy from being super elite. Right? Double XL southpaw. Added 9 miles per hour in 2024. Just absolutely wiped the floor with New England competition. He's sitting upper 90s into triple digits as an 18-year-old. And this guy has the size to keep that. 19 to 20 inches of induced vertical break. That is beyond phenomenal for a fastball. That is possibly the best fastball in this draft. To add on to that he has, according to MLB Pipeline, 2 other 50 grade pitches with 50 control. And we could be talking about a superstar in the next few years. We could be talking about one of the fastest risers once he gets healthy and starts playing. We could be talking about one of the best steals, if not the best steal in this draft at 89 overall. And I know a lot of teams were scared away by the fact that he was a Northeasterner, which I know a lot of people seem to disregard just because they can't play ball the whole year. But as someone from the Northeast, we got some players up here, I'll tell you that much. I love this pick. I love these 3 picks. I love the Rangers draft. I am, if not for the fact that they picked in the middle of the first round, I'd be tempted to give this an A+, but I think there's really only one guy that I'm a little on with Aiden Bernard. But Colby Branch in the 8th round is one guy that I wanted to mention. Now, Obviously, taking 3 high schoolers with their first 3 picks is going to be expensive. So, basically just taking college players from there on out. But Colby Branch is a guy that I'm interested in. Out of Georgia, SEC, as you know, always a big thumbs up for me. He is not ranked in the group project, not ranked on MLB Pipeline. But at Georgia, he did something very interesting. 3 consecutive years, 21, 22, 23. Overage, sure. But he had over 1,000 OPS at an SEC school. Shortstop, second baseman, probably more of a second baseman. But 20 home runs, 60 RBI. 72 strikeouts is scary. 40 walks is not terrible. But 20 home runs, 13, 17, he's got power. He's got power. And he's starting pretty much every game for an SEC team. I think if you can get that in the 8th round, I say why the hell not? 900 OPS every single year of his college career from age 20 at Baylor, 21, 22, 23 at Georgia, and played pretty much every day. Over 250 plate appearances every single one of his years. I think that's the kind of guy that you roll the dice with, even if there are some contact issues there. And ultimately, I think this is a great pick, and I think it's great value. So, that's 4 A's for the Rangers draft, but they nailed their first 3 picks, and I think that really grades them on a curve. I give their draft an A. I love it. I think it's one of my favorites. So, yeah. Do with that what you will. One of my least favorites, though. Astros. Big swing and a miss. No, not big swing and a miss, because I gave them a C. It's, I'm just sort of lukewarm on their first round pick in terms of a value proposition here. Logan Hughes, ranked at 42 MLB Pipeline, and rated at 30 according to the group project here. Out of Texas A&M, 55 hit, 55 power. Both good. No other tools, though. He can't field. Probably going to end up being, I just don't know if I trust a guy with no fielding acumen, no running acumen, with only 55 at 5'11", 197, filled out pretty much entirely, I would suspect. Without a defensive home here, I want to see at least 60 grade power, if not more. I understand that 55 hit is good. I understand that it's something that you like to see. The only thing I would say, 50 walks to 33 strikeouts in the Big 12, 18 home runs, 70 RBIs, 510 OBP, 1,200 OPS. Great stats at a college level. But if these grades are to be trusted, that's a difficult selling point. And either way, it's a big reach at 17. And, they definitely used this to fund the next 2 picks that they had, without a doubt in my mind. But I just don't really see the vision here. They used, they recouped some of that value with Bo Peterson here in the 4th comp round here, but I just don't see the vision. Jack Rydell, on the other hand, I do see the vision. I like the vision, and I think this is an excellent use of sort of 2 quick succession picks. While you're not even out of the first round at 28 overall, you're taking a swing on a guy that was ranked a little under that value-wise at 42 in the group project, 44 on Pipeline. But he's very polished. 55 on the fastball, 50 on the curve, 55 on the slider, 55 on the cutter, 50 on the change, 55 on the control. He's got 2/3 of the Ross pack, which is to say, named after Drew Rasmussen, named by Nick Pollock. Just needs to add a sinker there, which I should be able to, considering he has a 50 grade changeup. 6'5", 250, big body, can probably put some more velocity on that fastball. Touch 98, can probably sit a little bit higher than 93, 95, I would think. Was a great performer at Notre Dame in the ACC. 116 strikeouts in 87 and 2/3, 2.3 walk per nine, 0.8 home run per nine with 11.9 strikeouts per nine. I think just very, very polished. Added some strikeouts to his game this year, which I love to see. And I think he's a guy that's trending in the right direction at 21 years old. You know, he's a junior 4-year, and there's some projectability in that body. You know, with 6'5", 250, you could expect him to add a little bit of velocity without seeing too much damage overall to his body. And a very balanced guy, a very quality pitch mix, and I think we'll see him in a big league rotation sooner rather than later. And I think that's a good way to follow up what I think is sort of a lukewarm first round pick with Logan Hughes. Wes Mendez, the second pick here out of Florida State. An interesting grab here for the Astros. I gave this pick another A. And this is a guy that really took a big step forward this year in the draft. 64 on the group project, 51 on pipeline, taken at 57. Pretty much split the difference, more or less chalk. This is a lefty, 21 years old, 6'1", 198. Probably never going to have an elite fastball. And there's not really anything that stands out for him other than his 60-grade changeup and 55 control. Now, this is the kind of thing where 50-grade fastball, 50-grade cutter, add a sinker, play off of that changeup with the sinker, use that control to your advantage, and sprinkle in the curveball slider in there. Really lean on that changeup and the 3 fastball approach. And I think you got a great pitcher in there. 93 innings pitched, only gave up 70 hits, 12.1 strikeouts per nine, 125 strikeouts in the ACC. You know, 2.4 walks per nine, 0.6 home runs per nine. Looked like he really took a step forward in his home run suppression. I would say that the changeup probably did the bulk of that. And yeah, I mean, like, this is a guy that I think has some more polish on him, but I think is a guy that you can really imagine the Houston Astros team working on his pitch mix and leaning into what he does well, and just sort of looking at as a 3 fastball changeup type approach while he's showing enough of the other breaking balls to keep hitters honest and to play into the platoon advantage there. But I think that's great value in the second round. And I think, you know, Raydell and Mendez, we're probably going to see these two in the Astros rotation. It wasn't a long time ago that we saw the Astros pitching development as one of the best in the game. You know, I think what they've done with probably a few guys like Burrows this year, and you know, it's looked a little rough, especially with injuries. But I trust the Astros to do what it needs to be done with Raydell and Mendez, and maybe add a little bit more velocity and tinker with their mixes. Guys with deep arsenals coming out of college, I think they can take to these a lot more than another guy could have. So I think those are 2 really good picks. Bo Peterson is the other guy that I gave an A to. I'll talk about him for a little bit here. He is the second high schooler that they took in this draft in the 4th comp round draft pick. And he is a guy that a lot of people like. My understanding is that a lot of people seem to believe that he would be difficult to buy out of his commitment Texas, which is why he probably fell to the 4th round. But he has a much higher ceiling than that. Ranked 97 by MLB Pipeline, ranked 96 by the group project, taken at 133. I think that's great value. 55 hit, 50 power, 60 arm, 50 field. Probably going to be a corner infielder if I had to guess, which is fine. But he's got some power upside there. 6'3", 195, right? 18 years old. And he's got a big arm performed really well in the Summer Showcase in 2024. He was the MVP for a couple of showcase, 16U tournaments and all that kind of stuff. And he's looking like sort of a complete package there. He's shown plus ability to steal bases despite his 40 run in the junior circuit. And, he's someone that, like it says here, he would have drawn some interest as a pitching prospect, if not for his offensive upside. Plus raw power, great line drive contact. That's a swing tweak. He's got the goods, 55 hit, and he's got a defensive home there at third there, it looks like. So I think that's really good value there, especially in the fourth comp round with their 6th pick in the draft. So that gets an A for me. Overall, not very impressed. And again, price of doing business, drafting the guys that they've drafted, a little bit of a mediocre back end there for me. So that really brings their grade down. But overall, there's some guys to like. Raydell, Mendez, I think 2 of the safer pitching prospects that was taken in the first 3 rounds here. So I will shake their hand and say, Godspeed, sir. Next up, Reds. Interesting draft. I think there's some pluses and there's some minuses here. Justin LeBron, I'm not a big fan of his overall offensive profile, but he is someone who has so many other tools in the tool bag that it's almost not worth mentioning the offense in a way. Obviously, that's a big deal, but I think if he's just an okay offensive force, he's going to be a exceedingly positive on the WAR metrics here. You look at here, 70 run, 60 arm, 60 field. That right there is going to be enough to put you on a big league roster, right? Let's just talk about the fact that he has graded as a 60 power on MLB Pipeline. Ranked 9th on MLB Pipeline, ranked 13th on the group project, 18th overall to the Reds out of Alabama. So 56 strikeouts, 68 strikeouts, 53 strikeouts. That's scary to me, right? He's getting 16 home runs, 48 RBI. Not really taking his walks, an OBP under 400 in the first round. Even though it's the SEC, I'm not a big fan of that. Only one season above 1,000 OPS. I just think this is a guy that's going out of the zone a lot. I think this is a guy that's probably going to have some problems. Probably going to have some problems when it comes to swing and miss out of the zone. And like it mentions here, only knock on LeBron is his tendency to chase pitches out of the zone, especially breaking balls. I just think that, like, when we're talking about a guy hitting under 300, OBP under 400, 16 home runs, even if it comes with 42 stolen bases, I don't really see the upside there offensively. But like I said, his tools will keep him on a big league roster no matter what. 70 run, 60 arm, 60 field. Going to be a great shortstop. Probably end up in the center field role, I would think. Again, 42 steals and 43 attempts. That's some real speed. So he's going to be a big leaguer. How much of an impact he's going to have, I'm not 100% sure with the bat. So, that's just something to take with a grain of salt. Eric Becker, on the other hand, with their 2nd round pick, that's a guy I can get behind. This is a guy that I think a lot of people had going earlier than this, and the Reds were probably very happy to see him fall into the laps at 58. 41 ranked on Pipeline, 34 on the group project there. 6'3", 190, not bad at all. 55 hit, 50 field, 50 arm, 50 run. at shortstop. Probably going to end up being a second baseman, I would think, but a very good second baseman. And I want to look at his stats here more than anything, right? Like, 7 home runs, 42 RBIs, nothing to write home about, but he's not striking out a ton, only 36 strikeouts in the ACC for Virginia. And, a 961, not quite as strong as he was in his sophomore year with Virginia, where he had 9 home runs, 52 RBIs. He had 21 doubles as well. 21 walks more than he had this year. So, a 368 batting average. He's got some upside there with the bat. He's got hitting ability. You can say that much for him, right? And bat to ball skills, limited chase. That's going to give you a chance to stick around. Played for Team USA over the summer as well. I just think he looks like a ball player. He looks like a solid ball player. He will be someone that I think we'll see on MLB rosters. And I'm not really sure what the upside it could be here, but if he's hitting 280 and giving you like 15, 20 home runs a year, I think you take that every day of the week. And probably helping you sign everybody else as well. So I'm A-okay with that. And the last guy I want to talk about with the Reds here, Levu, out of UCLA here. And what I like about this pick, I love his name, for one. For two, UCLA, great program. Brock Chalowski, of course. He's coming in at 62 on Pipeline and 71 on the group project, getting taken in the competitive balance round B at 70th overall. Pretty much chalk, but 50 hit, 55 power, 50 arm, 50 field. A good player. 6'1", 205, probably filled out on the max there. I want to point to his rookie season, or his freshman year with UCLA. In 46 games, hitting 291, 809 OPS. High strikeouts, but showed some promise there. Taking a step forward every single year. 12 home runs as a sophomore to 18 this year. 85 RBI last year to 63. That's somewhat contextual though, so we won't bang him for that too much. But 24 walks to 30 this year, and then down from 48 strikeouts to 32. Almost as many walks as he has strikeouts. A 4.41 OBP, over 1,000 OPS, 340 batting average in 59 games in the Big Ten for UCLA. Big time program, getting big time reps against big time schools. That's always going to give you at least a bonus pat on the back here. I think his bat to ball skills are higher than a 50 here, with a 55 power being the grade is probably about right considering what we're looking at. But if he's improving every single year, it seems, up arrows next to his name. Didn't really stagnate in school, just got better every single year, cut strikeouts, added more walks, added more power. I like the direction he's going in. I really do. And I think this pick at 70th overall is great value. I really do. So that gets an A for me. Last guy I want to talk about here is Dylan Bowen, shortstop here out of Hanover Central High School in Indiana. Now, purely from a value point of view, MLB Pipeline has him ranked at 105, and the group project has him ranked at 137. He was taken at 154. So either way you look at it, good value there. 6 foot 191, 19-year-old coming out of high school, so a little older, committed to Oklahoma State. I am A-okay with that. Now, he's ranked 111, according to Perfect Game. And, that's probably a little high when you're looking at the context of, other high schoolers that were probably taken after him being ranked higher. But 55 hit, 60 run. 55 arm, 55 field. Really, really good at a lot of things. Power at 45. MLB Pipeline has him as a 12 to 15 homer. But plus speed, range at shortstop, probably going to stick at shortstop, base stealing ability, and he's got a plus hit tool. And, gap to gap power, he has bat speed, and he makes consistent contact. I think there's a lot to like about this value here in the 5th round. And, the fact that they've taken all college players up to that point, easily be able to afford him and not mess up your overall draft strategy. I gave the Reds a B+. I think it's a solid draft there. Dylan Bowen gets my best pick of the lot, though. I think he has a lot of the stuff that Eric Becker has, but lower in the draft. A better value proposition in my mind, and I think, unlike Becker, is probably more likely to stick at shortstop. So I like it a lot. I like Levu a lot. I like Becker a lot. So, and LeBron has some value there as well. So I have no problem with any of that whatsoever. Next up is the Guardians. This is one of those where it's the Guardians, and you kind of have to take that in context, right? Especially when you're talking about Liam Peterson. So, Liam Peterson ranked 20th according to MLB Pipeline, and he is ranked at 19th according to the Group Project, taken at number 19, so pretty much chalk there. 6'5", 225, but with advanced feel for his secondaries. 6'5", 225, 65 slider, 55 curveball, 50 changeup with a 60 fastball. His control is something that the Guardians have taught to guys for so long. They take guys with good pitch mixes and they give them control, and they end up improving. Florida, SEC, 111 strikeouts and 84.1 innings pitched. The whip is a little high at 1.4. 3.8 walks is a little 1.2 home runs per 9 is a little but can't argue with 111 strikeouts and 84 in the third innings. That, of course, is up, not in terms of rate, but he had 96 strikeouts and 69 in a third. For Florida last year, 12.5 strikeouts per 9. He actually improved his walk per 9 from his sophomore year to his junior year, and he has done so in every single one of his years. He's improved his whip in every single one of his years, and, there's some stuff to like here. And I'll start with the slider here. The slider has some great feel. He's shown the ability to hit upper 90s with the fastball. And, it's just the guy that I see with the Guardians. I see the Guardians doing a ton with him. I'm excited to see what he can do in the future. I think he's going to look like a great value here at 19. I think he's going to make it to the big leagues. I think we'll see him in the rotation for the Guardians, and I like that a lot. Logan Smith with their second pick, another A. Another guy that I look at with the Guardians, I say 55 fastball, 55 slider, 50 changeup with 55 control, very well-rounded, 6'4", 210 at 17 years old. Definitely room to add some velocity there. And adding velocity would only improve that pitch mix. To have 3+ pitches at 17 years old, 12th ranked high schooler according to Perfect Game, plus control. Look, this is a guy that is committed to LSU. LSU does not commit guys that are not going to be, at least contributors to their program, right? Ranked 45 by MLB Pipeline, and ranked at 38 according to the Group Project. Taken at 59 is just great value regardless of anything else. But he's got 3+ pitches, plus command, and not to mention that he's a very polished, up to 96, and I just think the Guardians can make him even better. Take him in the second round there. I take that 10 times out of 10. Absolutely every day. Trey Bouchard, the first position player that they've taken in this pick out of University of Houston. You know, I've had this. This is one of the first guys that I actually rated as an A when I was just doing a quick sweep of the list before I really drilled into everything. 126 according to the group project, 91 according to MLB Pipeline. So they must be the high man on him. Taken at 95, so a little higher maybe than the group project seemed to think. But there's a lot to like here. Still 20 years old, for one. 20 years old as a junior graduate here from Houston. 55 hit, 70 run, 55 arm, 60 field. I mean, bang. Like, look at that. Look at that. A 55 hit with 70 run immediately gets you salivating, right? Not to mention the fact that he's going to play a good center field, presumably with the 60 grade hit tool. Co-MVP honors in the Cape Cod League. Plus speed, of course. Consistent contact. Reasonable discipline, gap to gap. He's got bat speed. He was a performer at Houston last year, 344, 443, 905 OPS. You know, only 3 home runs, but 25 stolen bases, almost as many walks as he has strikeouts, and he's done that in his last 2 years as a 19-year-old, as a sophomore, 20-year-old as a junior. Improved his OBP numbers year on year there, and, you know, he has taken a little bit of a step back on the power, but it's there. Disciplined approach, 22 walks, 25 strikeouts in his sophomore year, 26 to 31 in his junior year. And, look, considering the fact that he is a third-round pick here, I'll take 70 grade any day of the week. And if he's got the ability to hit for a little bit of power, and he's got the ability to field his position with grace and with prowess, which he does seem to be able to do, I like that value a lot. Another guy, Cade Lewis, in the 4th round here. Now, ranked 104 according to Pipeline, and according to Group Project 131, taken at pick 123. So, he was taken out of Wake Forest. Good program, as we know. Mostly for pitchers, but this guy's a third baseman that we're looking at right now. So, 21 years old, 55 hit, 50 power, 50 arm, 40 field. So, the main spot on here, this guy's got really no defensive home. He's a first baseman, and he's not a particularly great one at that. But he's got an ability to hit, right? ACC hit 354. 354 with a 444 on-base percentage, over 1,000 OPS in every single one of his college career years. Started at Butler in the Big East, hit 377 there. Then transferred to Wake Forest, hit 376 there. Same number of walks and strikeouts at 45 apiece, 11 home runs, 59 RBI. This year, 13 home runs, 58 RBIs, adding stolen bases with 7, 34 walks, 35 strikeouts, 354 with a 444. Took a little bit of a step back in the overall power numbers. Went from 18 to 12 doubles. But I just like the pure hitting ability of this guy and his disciplined approach there. Not striking out too much, but taking his walks. He's got enough power there where I'm intrigued. Maybe he's one swing adjustment away from getting to that power a little bit more. He's going to have to without really a defensive home. But, if he just keeps hitting, it's not going to be much of a problem. Maybe he ends up being a little bit more of a bench guy just because he's just not really fielding any of his positions exactly well. Definitely going to be at least a first baseman, but I think that's great value at pick in the 4th round. And, I just think it's a great all-around hitting ability at a pretty high level there for Cade Lewis. So that pick gets an A. And the last one I wanted to kind of touch on is Deaton Lachance, Quebec native here. There's a lot of undervalued picks. I mean, talk about Savion Sim for 2 seconds. Pipeline had him at 85, taken at 213. Really, really good spot. 6'8", 215. I like that projectability a lot. But I want to talk about Deaton Lachance. Catcher, 6'5", 231. And had 151 on the group project, and he was looking at 103 on the MLB pipeline, taken at 184. I think no matter how you slice it, that's really good value. And let's just talk about the fact that at Oklahoma, national champion, he was a late bloomer a little bit this year. Didn't really get to the power until later, but then he went on an absolute tear. 18 home runs, 69 RBIs. 46 strikeouts, maybe a little high. 29 walks, a little low. 396 OBP, but he hit 327 here. And over 1,000 OPS in the SEC Oklahoma, which is, by the way, his only year in college. So, 21 years old, only year in college. He's got 55 power, no run, but he's got a great arm. Might profile more as a first baseman just based on his fielding numbers, but his power is his real tool here. If he can get to that to a better degree, it's a project. Don't get me wrong here. But 6th round pick out of Oklahoma, probably going to be taking under slot money as well. I like the risk. I like the gamble. Plus, I love me some Quebecois from Sherbrooke. Give that a B, but overall, I give that draft an A. I just think there's 5 extremely great value picks here. Liam Peterson, Logan Schmidt. I love those guys as pitchers. Savion Sims, not quite a Guardians type pitcher, but I think he can do a lot with that. Burchard and Cade Lewis, both good bat to ball skills. And Burchard, premium athlete. Cade Lewis will always hit for average. Last team of the video, my Boston Red Sox. It's certainly one of the more interesting drafts. We'll put it that way. The first round pick, Jake Schaffner. In context, I'm completely fine with it. Out of context, it's a reach, right? And I can't really grade it as a whole because I don't really know what the strategies are overall like I do with the Red Sox. So give that a D in a vacuum. But it allows you to go out and sign some great players on the back end here. I want to talk about Jake Schaffner just briefly here. 55 hit, 40 power, 60 run, 45 arm, 50 field. Fielding home is probably at second base, but 55 hit, 60 run. I don't mind it. Probably will be a big league player, if not a utility type guy. 74 on group project, 75 on pipeline. Taken at 20th overall pick, definitely a reach, but he took the biggest haircut in a decade in terms of his bonus, which allowed the Red Sox to go after some great high schoolers later. And maybe he can get some more power here, 6'2", 200. I think 40 is probably a little unfair. Put him through the ringer a little bit. Hit 356 for UNC in the ACC. 26 stolen bases, 50 RBIs, over 1,000 OPS. I don't think that's bad at all. Top performer at North Dakota State, even though he didn't really have much power there. Color me intrigued. Probably going to be a big leaguer, just probably more of a utility guy, which is fine enough in context. But I want to talk about the two 9th and 10th round picks here, because this is really where the Red Sox took the money that they saved on Schaffner and Owen Hull and really put it to good use. Martin Schiller, he was taken in the 9th round, was I think the lowest drafted player that was ranked in MLB Pipeline's 250. As far as I can tell, rated at 175 there. He was at 114 on the group project, taken at 274. Now, obviously, someone that looks like a lot of people are a little nervous about their signability, but Red Sox got it done. And they did it by taking a haircut early in the draft. 29th ranked high school prospect. Great runner, good arm strength, huge bat speed and power at the main event. Outstanding perfect game. Nationals with 20 home runs in the spring of 2026. Committed to Mississippi State, another SEC school. Big plus on that. I will give that the time of day, 100%. 45 hit, a little worrying. 55 power, 55 run, 55 field, 55 arm, 50 field. I think that's probably a little, on the light side for him. But he's got 20/20 ability. I think this is a guy that the Red Sox liked a lot, and they knew he was going to be there. 19 home runs in 33 games. Above average raw power. I think the Red Sox have shown enough ability in their bat speed and bat direction training where I think you can get the most out of this guy. And I like it a lot. I do. And 9th round pick, you can't get much better than that. Caleb Lefevre, 205th ranked high schooler, unranked on both Group Project and Pipeline. However, the Red Sox love the projectability on this kid, right? He is a young kid. I'm not sure how old he is. I think he's 18, but he's 6'7", 195. Definitely some ability to put some muscle on those bones here. And great, great extension. Can add some plus on that fastball, as the Red Sox have done with just about every other guy that they've taken in the last few years there. The Red Sox scouting director comparing him to Jacob Mizorowski physically, and I just trust the Red Sox to be able to get at least an 80th percentile outcome on this kid, which I think you could at least look at as a plus bullpen arm in your future. But taken in the 10th round, I would take that any day of the week. I think that's a green for me. I give the Red Sox draft B overall. I think in this section, I like the Rangers draft the best, with the Guardians coming out in a close second. I would say overall, I still like the Rockies and the A's higher than both of them. White Sox are probably there as well. So if I had to grade the ones, of the ones I've talked about so far, if I'm grading draft classes, I think I'm going to go with the A's, then the White Sox, then the Rockies, then the Rangers and the Guardians is my top 5. So, still yet to get to the back end here. I think there's some question marks here, and there is some guys that I thought had really, really good drafts, and so you'll have to wait for tomorrow for me to bring out part 3, talking about picks 21 through 30 there, and I will get back to bed here, dream about some baseball, come back tomorrow, and have a fresh new take for everything. So appreciate everybody sticking through, watching this. It's a little bit of a long one here, but hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you feel a bit better about your drafts, or you're maybe a little bit more intrigued by some of the names that you may not have heard in the mainstream here. So either way, I hope you enjoy, and I will see you tomorrow.